Okay, so thank you everyone for joining me. For those of you that are watching, for another round of Meet the Maker interviews. My name is Marcy Parks. I'm the founder of the Bristol and Bloom Appalachian Regional Art Festival that's happening on August 8th of 2020 at Cumberland Square Park in Bristol, Virginia. So I'm interviewing artists that are participating in the art festival as part of this Meet the Maker series. And today I've got Alex Capps. So thank you so much, Alex, for joining me for this video. If you would, just go ahead, for anybody who doesn't know you, just tell a little bit about yourself, like where you live, where you're from, and what you do, what you make.
I was born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. I've lived here my entire life. I like to make a variety of stuff. I'm constantly trying new stuff, but I typically make dream catchers. I do some wood burning, a little bit of painting. It's not exactly my forte, but I do some acrylic painting and some watercolor painting. And then I mostly do like wire wrapped crystal jewelry. So I make, earrings, necklaces, and I'm constantly looking for, new stuff to try.
Yeah, so I'm just going to really quickly share my screen because I was perusing your Etsy shop earlier. And let's see, here's your Etsy shop. So can you see that okay on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I've got your Etsy shop pulled up, and here are, it looks like, so this is a drawing that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a necklace that you've made?
Yeah, I was working with a lot of polymer clay. Currently, I am not. I'm taking a break from that.
Sure.
I would eventually like to get back to it. I really did enjoy it, but I haven't made any in probably a year. I actually took a break from my Etsy for the most part for a year, just because I wasn't really in a very good mental environment. Like I wasn't very good mentally. So I actually just now, over the last couple of months, have been putting, like, if I'm not at my full-time job, then I'm working on my business full-time as well. So
Yeah. So this is really beautiful, by the way.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And your wire wrapping is so cool. But I'll get to that. So first, I just want to ask, so what do you do full time?
I am actually a stalker, and well, predominantly I'm a forklift driver.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny when you said stalker, I was like you stalk people? Like that's cool.
Yeah.
How do I get to I'd be really good at that job. How do I do that?
Yeah, I get paid to do that. No, I actually stock at a warehouse, but
okay.
I'm the forklift driver, so I'm in charge of like getting all the pallets down out of the steel and getting them on the ground for people to stock.
Yeah, really cool. That sounds fun. Getting to operate heavy equipment.
Yeah. I'm actually a very clumsy person, so it's not, it's probably, somehow I do well at it though, so.
That's so funny. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen. So I know you were saying you haven't really updated your Etsy shop, or you haven't been working with it as much in the last year or so. But I want to show people these wire wrappings because they are so intricate and so gorgeous. And the
Well, all of
design.
that, like all of that stuff at the top is my more recent stuff. I have been updating it. Like I just took kind of a year break, not really intentionally. I just really just kind of gave up on my business for a while. And then a couple months ago, I was like, I'm going to get back into this. And, if I'm not at work, I spend all of my other time on this. Did that just get interrupted? No, okay.
Yeah, I still hear you.
Oh, can you still hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
It's a little more quiet. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, I don't know what happened. You're just very quiet now.
I'm very quiet.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just turned up my volume a little bit more. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, I can hear you now.
All right. Zoom has been a little funky today so far. So,
Well, my mom just tried to call me on Facebook, so I think that probably interfered.
yeah, maybe that's what it is. So first, going back to your wire wrapping, so I'm going to share my screen again. So this you're saying is more current work or up to date,
Yeah.
and stuff that you've been putting out recently. So like this is crazy. I mean, it's not crazy, it's gorgeous, but it's like when I look at it, I really have to stare at it for a while just to understand like the complexity of it.
I have only made 2 like that. I'm not going to take full credit. That's not my, like I didn't come up with that design. I actually learned that by watching Oksana Crafts off of YouTube. So I am constantly trying to learn new skills. And that took me about 4 to 6 hours. I don't know the exact time, but it did take me quite a while to make that one.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's so wild. And this one down here seems similar in the complexity of it. And I love the way too, just the way you photograph these, like the way you hold them in the light and let the light shine through the crystals. Like that's really gorgeous.
Thank you.
I get caught up in the aesthetics of it. Like, oh, she's so good at displaying these.
Well, I'm honestly glad to hear that because it's taken me, I started my Etsy probably about 4 or 5 years ago, completely unintentionally. Like I wasn't ever really planning on starting an Etsy. And, you know, I've come a long way in the last couple of years for sure, especially over the last year. Like my photographing has gotten a little better and, you know, I'm constantly trying to improve everything.
Yeah. Well, it's really good that, you know, so much of this, especially if you're trying to have like a creative business, it can be because the creative process can take such a demand on your energy as it is. And then when you're trying to also operate it as a business, you know, that can be really challenging too, just because like I know for me, you know, it can take a lot out of me just to paint and everything else, and I need time to like recover from that. But then like it can take just as much energy if not more, because it's not necessarily something that I'm comfortable with, to do all of the computer work that goes with it. So
Yes.
taking all the photographs, sharing those on social media, promoting it and all of that. So I can totally relate to what you're saying, especially when you were describing, you know, like not necessarily being in the best mental space and needing to back away from your business for a year or so. Like I'm not consistent on Instagram right now. And I seriously will just like disappear for months at a time and then pop back up all of a sudden. And it really is just sort of that it's very similar to my creative cycle. Like I go through these periods of intense creative production. And then once that's depleted, it's like it takes a while for me to, you know, reflect on like the experience and then to sort of develop that inspiration again, and then get the energy and even the courage to like start producing again. So I just really appreciate you sharing that part of your story, because I feel like a lot of artists and creative people can just relate to that experience.
Yeah, because I mean, especially like with the Etsy, I mean, used to, even just a couple months ago, I was really trying, like, I would make at least 1 necklace a day. And then on my days off from my, you know, like corporation job, I would try to make as many, like my first day off, I would try to make even more. And then my next day, I would take like 8 or 9 hours and just get them all upload it on Etsy. If anybody has any secrets on like how to like do it quicker, please let me know, because it takes forever to get it all up on Etsy. So I was doing it every week, and then now I'm doing it like once a month, just because it really can take so much out of you. Just, you know, and plus I'm not the type of person who enjoys sitting on the computer for 9 hours straight. Um, but, you know, it really does take a lot doing that part. And I've always said that eventually I'd like to maybe find somebody to do like that part of the business for me. Like I can make stuff and then I can hire somebody to do the online stuff. But I am glad that I've got to experience the business side of it too. And I'm constantly learning on that side of things and trying to do research on how to better my business. And eventually I'd like to maybe pull away from Etsy and make my own website as well. That way I can kind of have it all organized into one spot.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, you know, I don't think that's the part that people necessarily realize when it comes to what all goes into what you're doing. You know, again, it's first of all, it's a lot in its own just to make those necklaces, right? Like you were talking about how long it took you to do that one design. So you've got all that time and energy that's put into that. But then, you know, again, like you have to photograph these pieces. And of course you have to photograph them well. Like it can't just be like quick snap and post the picture. Like you've actually got to style it and take a, you know, make sure the lighting's right, all of these things. And then there's also the listing part of it. And like you said, that's not a simple process, and it's not streamlined. So yeah, I think it's important for people to recognize that, especially, and I think a lot of times people might think of it as like, oh, this is just a hobby and she enjoys doing it. And yes, that's the case. Like this is something that you probably love, or I'm assuming that you love, but or else you probably wouldn't spend that much time on it. But you know, it's still something that is a business. It's still a legitimate business that, you know, requires the same kind of energy and time that any other business would. And not to mention, like, you also have a full-time job on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like because I'm trying to save myself some time now, whenever I actually post things on Instagram, which it's convenient because you can link Instagram and Facebook. So I post it on Instagram and it just shares to Facebook. Love that. But because originally whenever I first started, I didn't know that was an option. So I would post on both all the time. Because I used to be tech savvy when I was a kid, but now it's kind of, no, not so much. But now, like, I'll actually post, if you're interested in this, like, go ahead and message me and claim it before I get it on Etsy, and you can get it at a cheaper price, because it'll save me that extra time having to upload it on Etsy. And, you know, like, even this last week, I've kind of just taken a break from everything, just to kind of do some self-care and really just be like, hey, what do I want to do this week? You know, I watched a couple movies, and, you know, and then actually 2 days ago, I had 7 custom orders placed from people at work. So I'm going to be busy the next couple of days.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's so great. And yeah, the way you're doing with the direct sales through Instagram too, you know, that you said it saves the money because you're not taking the time to upload those on Etsy. But it, you know, and people probably don't know this either, but Etsy also takes like whatever percentage, like you have to pay them in order to use their format and website to sell your work. So yeah, that's awesome. And as far as websites go, do you know what format, or I guess like service you want to use to build a website?
I have heard of a couple things. I've really wanted to do more research on it thoroughly, but I've been procrastinating on it just because it's like one of those things that, like, I've already got a million ideas going on in my head all the time. So that I'm kind of wanting to, I've just now really started to pick up my Etsy sales more. I think I'm like almost to 250 now. which it's disappointing because like I know that Etsy has started doing these ads where they're requiring you to partake if you make over 10 grand a year. I'm not quite there, but they are going to require that. And if I did hit that, they take 15% of any sale that somebody clicks on and buys.
Oh.
Yeah, so I just feel like they're starting to take more and more. So eventually I would like to, like for now it's great because I have that sell count and people can actually go there, see all my reviews, and you know, it kind of gives me some credibility on there. But eventually down the road I would like to make my own website. I don't know. I just need to do some more research first.
Yeah. Well, I just went through and made my own website maybe a month or so ago. It was fairly recent. Actually, no, it was back last year around like October or November. And I used Squarespace.
I've heard of that.
Yes. Okay. So I'm not a tech savvy person at all. And it was actually pretty, I mean, don't get me wrong, like it was a process. It took me like a week to, you know, and working on it daily to get it to where I was okay with it. But it's otherwise pretty user friendly and pretty accessible for people, you know, like I said, that aren't necessarily the most tech savvy. And then other people I've heard also recommend Shopify a lot. And so if you're already used to the Etsy format, I've heard that Shopify is like definitely the way to go. So those might be two places that I would look first.
I think I've also heard of Wix or something, Wix.com,
yes.
I think.
Yes, that's another one. I don't have much experience with that one. I think I remember looking at it. I think I didn't like the templates for it as much because, you know, you can sort of pick a template where it's like already gives you a general layout of what the website would look like and how it would operate. But yeah. Anyway, not that you were looking for that advice or that.
No, thank you. I'm up for all the advice. You know, it saves me a little bit of time, you know, having to do some research. So thank you. Yeah.
So I'm going to share my screen again. And this time I'm going to pull up. So this is your Etsy. We just looked at that. Now here's your Facebook. So your Facebook and your Instagram are both, I love this little scroll through you've got here of all your listings, but I know you've got Facebook and Instagram linked, but where would be, so if I were somebody and I saw something that I wanted to get, that's gorgeous.
Thank you. I actually did that for myself.
Oh, that's nice. So if I saw something like this and I was like, ooh, I love that, I want that. Would Instagram or Facebook be the fastest way to get a response, or are you pretty responsive on both formats?
I'm responsive on both. For Facebook, I have the Pages Manager the app downloaded on my phone, so it notifies me, because without that, I never really got notified to my Facebook messages. So I downloaded the Pages Manager, and it's a lot more convenient. So I respond on both. With Instagram, if I'm not following you, I think sometimes it gets sent to the request. Yeah. But I check that pretty regularly too. I'm on both of them every day. I am not typically somebody who loves being on social media much, but you know, for the business I have to, so I'm on it all the time. And a lot of people, I don't think, realize the quickest way to get linked to my shop is at the top. There's the Shop Now button. I think on both of them.
Yes. And it's the same. So with your, first of all, where'd it go? There it is. Those are really cute. Did you make these, or, oh no, wait, somebody posted about these earrings. Is this somebody that you know that made these?
Well, I had seen somebody post about them, and they were going to be selling the what is it called? Like a plan for it?
Pattern, I guess.
Pattern, thank you. Yeah. And my aunt crochets, and I texted her a picture of them, and I was like, hey, can you make these? And within an hour, she had a pair made for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then a week later, she came over, and she had 20 pairs made for me to sell through, which I usually don't sell anything that's not mine, that I made myself. but I think I'm gonna actually have her teach me how to make those so I can start making them because they're so cute.
Super cute. I was gonna say these photos are so cute. This one's super adorable of you there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Instagram, so here people can get a direct link also to your shop.
Yes.
So if anybody's on your Instagram, they can click right there. Yeah, so these are, and I love this. That's so pretty. I got so excited.
Which one?
This one right here.
Oh, that one?
Yes,
Yeah, the black kyanite.
What is it? Black tourmaline? Oh, black kyanite. Super.
Yeah.
So where do you source your crystals and everything?
Oh, goodness. I have gotten them from all over. I've actually worked at 2 different gem mines in the past. Originally, it all started whenever I was, I think, around 18, and me and a couple friends were out one day, and we randomly stopped by this gem mine near Patton Avenue out here. It's I don't know, I think they had to change their name, but it was Asheville Biltmore Gem Mine. And I went in there and I just fell in love. Like, I had never even known that all these crystals existed. And I went in there, and after that I was hooked. Every other week, or no, just about every week, I was going back there and just getting a $25 bucket at the gem mine to mine. And I just started collecting all of them. And they also had a rewards program where every $100 you spent, you would get either a free $25 geode or a free $25 bucket at the gem mine. So I'd go buy 4 buckets, get a free 5th bucket. I was addicted. So that's where I got a lot of my rough from that I have. And then I worked at a farm. I eventually worked for them about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And I only worked there for a couple months, but I just got really close to them. And then I worked at a farm out in, like, way out in Leicester, near where I live. And she had a gem mine there, and she ended up putting me in charge of the gem mine. So I got some crystals from her. And then just recently I've started looking more online, and I kind of just, like, if I see something I like, I'll message the person. I'm following crystal pages on Facebook, or I'll look for, like, wholesale websites online. So I get them all over the place, really.
That is really cool. I love that you were, like, working at this gem mine and then became so obsessed with it. That's amazing. So so where did the wire wrapping start? Was it because of, like, which came first, the obsession with the crystals or the obsession with wire wrapping, or?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell. Whenever I was a kid, which I forgot to mention this, my name, like my business name, Clydescope Creations, I spelled it that way. I feel like people look at it and they're like, she doesn't know how to spell. I spelled it that way because originally my dad, whenever I was growing up, he was always into all kinds of different artsy stuff. Like, he was a woodworker mostly. And so I named it Clydescope, Clyde, after Clyde, which was his name. So it's a memory of him.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that.
So whenever I was a kid, he kind of taught me the basics of jewelry making. But being a kid, I was kind of like, okay, you know, this is cool, but it never really stuck with me. And then I never would have thought that I would be applying that to stuff later in life. And then I was, I think I was about 18 or 19, and I was actually, my old roommate was a DJ, and I was at a party, and I met one of their friends, and he pulled out his box and all of his wire and his crystals and just started wire wrapping. And I was like, whoa, what are you doing? And he started to teach me the basics, and it just kind of, I took it and ran with it.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I wasn't, like, actually planning on making a business out of it. I just started making jewelry for me and my friends. And then I worked at a grocery store, and I worked in the bakery, and I would wear my necklaces every day. And before long, I had everybody asking me about them. And before long, you would look around, and everybody in the store that I worked with was wearing one of my necklaces.
Yes.
So then they told me I should take it online, and then that's whenever I made my Etsy.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's like, I've got the Alex Originals.
Yeah. And I still, some of those people that I worked with that were some of my original supporters, like, they still are buying stuff off of me all the time now.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I'm super excited that you signed up for and are going to be participating in the Bristol and Bloom event. Just because we don't have anybody so far that's offering designs like this. And I love this one. This is so crazy. Let me pull this up. Um, this was one of the first ones that caught my attention that you have done. That I just thought was so cool. So neat.
Yeah, that's actually a custom. I'm waiting to hear back from the person, but they wanted that custom done for their girlfriend, so I'm waiting to hear back if they still want it or not. But I'm really wanting to take that style and use it more. Like not with just the raven, but with, other animals, and I'd like to do some flowers and some leaves and all kinds of stuff. I mean, with wire, you can really do anything. And my hardest part sometimes is just kind of like branching out and trying new stuff that like I've never seen before, like just coming up with new original ideas. So I'm really trying to do that more. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try and do that style more here soon.
Yeah. So one thing that I love about it is like the way these wires are coming down here, this cross that they're making, but the way they're twisted, like
Yeah.
it's just so pretty. And it's just these little details that make it so pretty. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's square wire that I use, and then you twist it to give it that look.
That is so cool. I didn't even know square wire was a thing. That's really neat.
Yeah, there's half round wire, and I think there's like triangular wire, and I've only used round, half round, and square so far. So
super cool. And so you also make dream catchers.
Yes.
Like this one, which is adorable, and I love that too.
Thank you. That's currently the only one I have available at the moment. I have to be in a special kind of mood to make some dream catchers.
Yeah. So really cool. So you've pretty much otherwise with the wire wrapping, aside from the introduction that you got at a party from just like some random dude, this is something that you've been really studying and learning and teaching yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I've been interested in it for, about 4 or 5 years. And, like I said, I've taken some breaks here and there just because, just to self-care. And especially like if I'm not in a good environment where I feel comfortable working on my art, then I can't do it. So I've got to, get to a better environment. And I also forgot, I just recently got an iPad, and I'm like messing around more with Procreate too. So I totally forgot about that.
super cool. Yeah, that's something that I'm hoping to look into in the future is digital art.
I
But
recommend it.
yeah, cool. So as far as when you describe or say that you're not in the best environment, do you mean like physical environment, like a living space, or are you meaning like mental environment? Or could it be a combination of both?
Both. It really just kind of depended on the times in my life. I've been in like bad physical environments, and then typically I feel like that affects your mental, where you're at mentally. Like it just really kind of depends. Like I was actually, I'm not going to go into any detail, but I was in a bad relationship, and I left back in August. And so that's whenever I was kind of like, okay, I'm getting my life together. And then that's whenever I started working on the business again. But for a year easily, I just was not happy where I was at physically or mentally. And so really it was hard for me to find inspiration or motivation, or like it would be months before I would even walk into my studio. So, I'm in a much better place now. And, now my business, like this is, a lot of people probably do think it's just a hobby, but my business, this is what I want to be my full-time income one day. Because I've even had the idea, like maybe I'll do a podcast one day, maybe I'll make a YouTube channel one day. So I've got a million ideas. Eventually I'll get around to all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you sharing and, being so vulnerable about your experience. And I'm really glad to hear that you are in a better space. mental space and environment, physical space, to be able to pursue this creative outlet. And what I appreciate about what you're saying and sharing is, one, that your creative expression is so important to you that you are willing to make those changes when things aren't great, in order to pursue and nurture those things, or pursue and nurture your creativity. And I think that's huge. That's a huge thing, because I feel like for a lot of people, it would be easy to get stuck and just sort of give those things up. So good for you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. But, and also with that, I think it's also, you know, having that creative expression and being able to create things, especially when you're a creative person, is so much tied to your mental health as well. So it's sort of like this vicious cycle you can get caught up in, where if
Yes.
your environment's not necessarily great, you're not creating. When you're not creating, that feeds, like, a still not great mental health space. And so it can just, it's really easy to get stuck in that loop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
But
It can be.
Yeah. So being able to recognize that you need to have this creative outlet, and you need to be creating in order to have good mental health space. And then recognizing that, there are changes that you have to make in order to get to that place where you can create. And then taking those steps to do that. I mean, that's really huge. So again, good for you for doing that. That's big.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it honestly it's who I am, really. I mean, without my art, like, I don't know who I'd be, honestly. Like, because originally growing up, I always said what I thought my family would want to hear, like, oh, I'm going to go to law school and be a lawyer. Well, then whenever it got to be high school, where I was actually starting to really have to think about those things, I was like, that sounds terrible. I don't want to be a lawyer. Like, everybody always told me that I would be a good lawyer because I talked a lot. But that's awful. Like, I can't argue. I don't like confrontation or conflict. I was like, that sounds terrible. So I got to my junior year, and that's when my dad passed away. And that year I was like, okay, I will go to AB Tech, and I'm going to do a double associates in cybercrime technology and criminal justice. And then right before I was supposed to be going to college for that, I was like, that sounds terrible too. I don't want to do that. Like, that's not me. So I just, I graduated high school, and I started working at a local grocery store, and I worked up my way up, and then eventually I was like the donut maker and the cake decorator.
The
And
coolest jobs in a grocery store.
yeah, really though. And I was like, I love my art. Like, I'm just gonna do art. I'm gonna work here, do my art, and maybe one day my art can be my job. But I never actually really thought further into it. Like, I didn't want to go to school for it. I never really have. I mean, I've considered going to school for graphic design, but I know that with art, like, you don't need a degree or anything. Like, you can just, I've seen it happen. Like, I've seen where you don't have to go to school for art, and you can still make a living off of your art doing what you love because you love it. So that's my goal.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that's come up in a lot of these interviews that I've done so far, is and something that I see as being a common thing within the Appalachian artist community, is that, a lot of artists from a region, have either taken a few classes but never pursued the full degree because of finances, or just didn't get a art degree at all. And, now they're either doing this full time, or they're working towards it, and it's, I had an interview with Summer Duncan. She's another artist that's participating in the event. And we did her interview yesterday. I just shared it today. And she was talking about that, culturally, and as our society, it seems that we're so achievement driven that we can get caught up in needing that external validation to say, like, okay, I've done it, I'm an artist. And something that another artist that I was talking with yesterday, Richard and I were speaking on, is how you're not like, you don't even have to sell paintings to be an artist. Like, you can't fail at it. It's just, you just do it. And I'm very much of the mind that being an artist is more a lifestyle than it is something that you do. Like, it's just, you just create things and you just are. It's not something that you have to pursue a degree for. And it's certainly not something you have to have. A degree is not something you have to have in order to, be quote unquote successful as an artist. If you're making something every day, whether it's like Play-Doh figures or drawings or beautiful intricate necklaces, you're winning at my start.
Yeah, I mean, like, you've always had the people who doubt that, you can't, like, I remember one time, I don't remember who it was, they told me, you can't make a living off of art. And that has always stuck in my mind, because no, like, everywhere you look, everything is art. It took somebody somewhere to design that. I mean, everything. But a lot of people don't think of it like that. I mean, used to, they didn't. I feel like I was dealing with a lot of, like, closed-minded people, but now, I mean, art is everywhere, and it's much more present in my life. So I see artists everywhere, and, like, there's so many people doing, like, more DIYs, and but and then I've even had somebody, I've actually had a couple people tell me that you can't make a living off of art, and they just don't understand, and they think that you do need to go to school to make a living off of art, but that's not how art works. Those are the people who don't understand.
Well, and it's also not, times are very different now. And this was
even in just a couple of years too.
And this was another part of a conversation with Brian Surway from yesterday, that we were talking about being an artist in 2020 and how different that is and how accessible that is. You absolutely, and you don't even have to be a successful artist in the traditional format now. There's so many different avenues you can take, and such a broader network of people that you can reach. And all it takes is just that courage to produce and to show up and to share it. And then also the commitment to doing that. And I think the concept of the starving artist is just, I think it's a limiting and false idea, I think it's outdated. I don't think it's something that fits anymore. I think, artists absolutely, and especially, considering, like, this current circumstances that we're in with the pandemic, and, what people have been using as or reaching to in these times. They've been watching movies. Movies are art. They've been listening to music. Music is art. They've been reading books. Literature is art. Like,
they're doing more art themselves as well, because they have all this free time.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, I think people are realizing now what a valuable resource it is, and not to mention, what it inspires in people. Right. So when you connect with a song that you're just like, oh, I feel this in my soul. Right. And you love it.
Yeah.
Like, that's art inspiring you. That's inspiration that comes from art. So, I think especially now in this age where we are, that now more than ever, the concept of a starving artist is false. And I just don't think that it's something that it doesn't fit anymore. There are too many artists out there that are killing it and in ways that are, like, non-traditional. You know what I mean? They're just, like, sharing stuff on Instagram, and
people are loving it. Yeah. And even 2 years ago, in the middle of me having my business, the person who I was actually with told me, like, this won't ever be your full-time income. Like, it's not going to happen. And you know, like I've already in the last few months made more than I have the last 2 years combined. And, you know, I'm starting to lose my like train of thought. Like I'm getting so excited, but I don't remember where I was going with that. So
Well, I hear you though. It's fun. I was thinking about how your family kept telling you you were supposed to be a lawyer. And I think about like what my family used to tell me, and they would always push me to be a nurse. And I like get really wheezy at the sight of blood. Like I would be
yeah.
the worst nurse ever.
Yep.
But it was just like, it is that those limiting thoughts and that not inability to recognize that times are changing, things are changing, and you know the things that they were told don't fit for everybody. One book that I would recommend, I don't know if you're a reader at all, but one book that I would recommend is by Julia Cameron. So she
I'll
had,
write it down.
yeah, write it down. So she actually has several books, but her first book in this series is called The Artist's Way. And so
Okay. I actually bought that book. I haven't read it yet.
yay, cool. Read it. So it's kind of like a workbook format. It's takes, I'm just gonna spoil a book for you. It's like a workbook format, and it goes over the course of 12 weeks. And so each week you've got assignments. Every day you have every day you have to write 3 morning pages. So first thing in the morning, you just write 3 pages of stream of consciousness, whatever is on your brain, just to get it out so that it's not in your head taking up space. And then once a week, you have your artist date. So it's like some activity you go and do, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be an activity. Sometimes for me, it was just like taking a bath.
Okay.
But and she has like writing prompts throughout each chapter, but it's a way to it's basically a book for creative recovery. So in those periods where you're just like lacking that inspiration or even motivation, that book is like the tools that you get in that book and from following that book are so valuable. And it's something that I come back to yearly and revisit yearly, just because it's such a great resource and
Okay.
helps to. Now, the reason that I got off on that tangent about Julie Cameron and The Artist's Way is because in that book, she talks about your inner critic.
Okay.
So, and then also, you know, just like the, what does she describe them as? I think she calls them non-believers. I don't really, that sounds like cultish, but, but
I know what you mean though.
yeah, but the people in your life and that are in your orbit that just have that mentality that, you know, again, if you're going to try and pursue jewelry making as a full-time job, you can't do it.
Yep.
And so her book is just a great resource for one, combating your own inner critic, and then also combating those external critics. Not in a way that's like confrontational, but in a way where you just recognize what they are. Oh, blocked creatives. That's what she calls them.
Okay.
So people who doubt and say those things about like, you can't do this, they're just blocked creatives. Like they haven't tapped into and, you know, tapped into that creative part of themselves. Or, you know, somebody in their life maybe has told them they can't do that, they can't be an artist or whatever. And so they've just like shut that door on that part of themselves.
And you know, I think about that pretty often, just like there are so many people out there who say that they don't have any creative outlet or any kind of hobby. And like the idea of that honestly breaks my heart. That they like there are people who just never find something, you know, like they just don't, they think that they don't have anything. When people say that they have nothing, like no hobby or no interest, like that honestly breaks my heart. Like the fact that there are some people who do.
Yeah, I manage Kiln Time Contemporary Ceramics, which is a paint your own pottery studio in Bristol. And
Okay.
yeah, and so people come in, and so we've got like pottery, bisque pottery that's like it's been first fired, so it's bisque fired, so it's just white pottery basically. And so we have like all kinds of different things like plates, mugs, bowls, figurines, piggy banks, that sort of thing, and all kinds of stuff. And so people can come in, pick out their piece, paint it, and then we'll fire it for them and give it back. But people come in all the time and say things like, I'm not an artist. I can't do this. I'm not good at this. And I'm like, yes, you are. Like, it's in there. It's in you. You're not like, just like with anything else, you're not going to just pick something up for the first time and be a master at it. Right. But
yeah, I took art class all through school, and like people are always like, oh, I'm not an artist. I could never do that. And it's like, well, at one point I couldn't do it either. Like, you
yeah.
got to practice. Like, it's not like all of a sudden one day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to start making jewelry and selling it. It's not like that at all. Like, I took art class ever since kindergarten. Like, that was always my thing. Like, if I could just go to school and take art class all day, that would be great. But my thing really, art class in the lower grades was great for me. And then once I got to high school and I started taking more challenging art class, like, I actually started to hate art class. Like, I would still take it every year. I took it every year except for my senior year. And I loved it. And then eventually I started to hate it because I was constantly comparing myself to everyone and just so like envious, thinking like I could never be that good. Like, they are so good. How do they do that? But ultimately, they were going home and spending all their time doing their art. I would only work on my art at home because I didn't want them to see me doing it, because I was so like ashamed of it in art class. And it wasn't until after I graduated that I didn't like the idea of, like, I understand that they were teaching us skills and everything in art class, but I didn't like the idea of them telling us how we had to do our art. And that was my biggest thing. It wasn't until after I graduated high school that I actually started to find my own things and actually do art how I wanted to, and actually enjoy my art.
And I've heard that a lot too from people who have pursued art degrees, even have shared similar stories where they feel that a lot of their teachers sort of stifled their creative expression in a way. Like, they learned the technical skills and the foundations, but it was still really limiting in a lot of ways. So I think that's one thing that is important to recognize, is that really your art is going to evolve and develop from your own practice and from your own experiences. And, again, it's just that commitment to making it a daily practice and treating it like practice. Like, I think of it like the way athletes train for competition. They have to practice daily and hone those train those muscles and hone that skill. Artists are the same. They have to practice daily and hone those skills, and letting that evolve over time. So really, like, your own school, you could say, like the school of Alex is, where you're going to learn the best and gain the most in your artistic pursuits. And so I feel like for a lot of people, again, they think it's just something that's born, like you're just born with it and that's it. But it's not that at all.
No, I remember my mom one time, I was actually doing this was before I was still in high school, and I was doing a painting of the Biltmore estate it was a house that was on the Biltmore estate property for somebody who went to my church as a gift. And I was painting the house, and like I said, I'm not a painter much at all. Like, it's not my forte.
You are a painter. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere. That's just not my favorite thing to do, we'll say. I can paint if I put my mind to it, but it's not my favorite thing to do. I have to be in, once again, a certain kind of mood. But I just, like, there was this lot, like, my mom, she's not very artsy. She always says that she never has been. And I just remember I was having trouble figuring out what was off about it. Like, there was a line that was wrong, and she walks over and she looks at it and she's like, oh, just tilt that this way. Like, she had the eye for it, but she's never really like applied that, like even tried to do anything artistic at all. So I feel like if she did, she could, actually, who knows what she could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have the eye for it, which sometimes I have trouble having the eye for it.
Right. Yeah. So not that I want to, I'm actually having a lot of fun with this conversation, but I also don't want to take up too much of your time. So I just want to, before we wrap things up, I'm going to just share my screen again. So I've got your Instagram here, and I'll be sharing your links for your Instagram, your Facebook, and your Etsy with the
Okay.
video. And just showing people this is where they can find you on Etsy, and this is your Facebook. But I do just want to ask my last question, as far as one thing that I'm asking everyone is just what it means. What does that look like to be an Appalachian artist to you? Or would you identify as an Appalachian artist, first of all? And then what does that look like to you, or mean to you even?
I mean, I read this question. I even asked my best friend. I was like, "What should I like? What should I say for this?" I overthought it for sure. I mean, I would identify as one. I guess I was born and raised here, and I do feel like just living in the mountains and living where I do has definitely had an impact on who I am as a person and as on my art. And, like I even find that I hate being cooped up inside all the time. So I even love going outside and working on my artwork. So I would identify as one. What it means to me, I don't know, that's a tough one.
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it. I think that, for example, like with my work being primarily abstract, it's not something that you look at and you think, oh, that's Appalachian art. It's not at all. But I identify strongly as an Appalachian artist just because I'm so influenced by Appalachia and this region. So exactly how you were describing, just having that connection to the outdoors and that being a source of comfort and inspiration for you. I think that's a big component of it. So yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, like going on a hike and picking a nice spot and doing a wire wrap, like I love doing that. I'm sure that if I was somebody else that was born on the complete opposite side of the country, I'm sure that my artwork would be completely opposite. There's no telling.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you so much, Alex, again, for taking this time to share about your experience as an artist and to share your work, and to just take the time, and for participating in the art festival. Thank you so much for making what you do and, just contributing more beautiful things to the world.
Thank you for putting all of this together too. I can't wait for it. It sucks that it got pushed off, but I look at it as a way for me to go ahead and be better prepared for it.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, it sucks, but I also don't have to scramble for. Yep. I can scramble in July instead of scrambling in April.
I have more time now.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to chatting with you more.
Thank you.